Hi, everyone. My name is Mr. Feldman, and you're here with the Business Teacher's Toolkit. I'm here today to talk to you about deductions from your paycheck in a personal finance money management class. The objective of this unit is for students to be able to estimate their net income by calculating deductions from the gross salary of any chosen career. The essential question, this is what it is that I hope that every student can walk away from this class or this session with to be able to answer. Why is an employee's paycheck less than what they earned? We start the unit with an introductory assignment called the Bean Game, brought to us by Next Generation Personal Finance. Students get a chance to learn how their life choices can impact the future and their financial future goals. And what it is students receive 20 beans or jelly beans or M&Ms or whatever it may be, and they place them on a board that allows them to choose exactly what it is that they think they'll make for life choices once they are an adult, whether it's renting a home or living with their parents, walking and taking the bus, riding a bike, or buying a car. And then life happens, whether you need to go to the hospital or perhaps something comes up like you lost your job or your hours were cut. You have to make some additional life choices. It's real world applicable, and students really do get into this. We move into an individual call out and response called Share or Pass. And the question and prompt for this particular Share or Pass is forget money, forget fame. What would be your dream job? I go first, and mine would be an international 5-star hotel reviewer. I call on an individual student. They start, they either share what it is that they would do or they would pass, and then we go on to the next person, go all the way through the room. Students tend to dig this. We define the difference between a job and a career. How do you define the difference? For me, I say that a job is something that they do just to earn some money in the short term, oftentimes what a high school student finds himself doing, versus a career being something that you choose to do. It's something that you want to do for the long run. Hopefully it tailors to your interests and things that you enjoy doing, something that you wake up every day excited to do, not something you dread doing and just for that paycheck. I give students 5 silent minutes to think and start jotting down their notes, making a T-chart of those items which they enjoy doing and those which they don't. The goal is to make this as robust as possible, because if you can list all the things you enjoy doing and those in which you do not, it allows you to really fine-tune what types of career opportunities are out there for you. I have students partake in this considering themselves at 22 years old. And the reason that I use 22 is because much of life has happened. They've graduated from high school and either went to college or a trade school, or they've spent 4 years working, gone to the military for 4 years, and now they're ready to embark on the next chapter of life. They've got some skills, some experience, and it's time to see what happens next in their world. I extend the enjoy and don't enjoy list by adding in preferences. What are their long-term goals, their interests, their skills, their abilities, passions, work experience, the work environment? For example, do you want to work indoors? Do you want to work outdoor? If you show up early in the morning and maybe finish earlier in the afternoon, are you a late riser and you want to work into the evening? Do you prefer having a career that's going to afford you stability or the ability to thrive in the middle class, maybe just meet the middle class? Or are you hoping to be one of those entrepreneurs or star-studded folks that reach for the stars and go on to purchase multiple homes and do whatever it is that they choose to do with that financial freedom? With all of your interests, your skills, the things you enjoy, and those in which you do not, now it's time to go over to a career interest profiler where you can take a questionnaire sample idea to get a list of all the things that you enjoy doing, those in which you do not enjoy doing, as well as some of your preferences. It's time to take a career interest profiler so that you can see what the computer thinks might be a good fit for you. It's not always accurate, but it gives you a good starting point, especially if you're one of those students out there that doesn't know what you want to do after high school. I'm fully aware that some students are not AI friendly, as well as their families or even classrooms or teachers, and I get that. For me particularly, I want to teach my students how to use AI ethically, responsibly in a real world setting. I know that most of the major businesses out there are absolutely using AI, so I want to prepare my students to be able to use it in a way that makes sense to make them more efficient, more effective, and to just train them not to use AI as their brain, but rather as their artificial intelligence assistant, for lack of better words. So with that, I give you this AI sentence frame for students to use where they are exploring career options and they enjoy, fill in the blank with all of your list, and don't enjoy, fill in the blank with all of your list. And then to follow up, have the artificial intelligence, whether it's ChatGPT or Perplexity or fill in the blank, to have them ask you questions about what you might enjoy doing as a career based on all of the information you gave it. We define gross income as the total amount of money that you will earn before any taxes or deductions are taken out. With all of that information in hand, it's now time to choose a career which students in my class will use and explore for the remainder of the entire semester, with the gross annual salary being the major component that we need because we're working on deductions. We need that gross annual salary to figure out exactly what is coming out of your paycheck. To add an extra level of professionalism and real world applicability to it, I have students then search Indeed.com or simply Hired.com or fill in the blank any other type of job search website out there and figure out, are the wages that you're finding on these questionnaires or profilers or even on AI actually relevant to what it is that's in your market? Some different places have different income ranges depending on where it is that you live. This gives you a general idea once you've done that search. Do these jobs exist and what are they actually paying? To get the student creative juices flowing, I ask, what is one thing that gets taken out of your paycheck before you see it? I use a platform called Pear Deck, and Pear Deck allows students to be able to respond right there in class by typing. It gives them a chance to have a voice if they're that student that's introverted or just shy or doesn't want to get the wrong answer. It gives them a voice to be able to type and give their opinion. There's also alternative programs out there such as Nearpod and many others. You could run this as well on paper or just simply having students raise their hand. What is one thing that gets taken out of your paycheck before you even see it? And that gets us to the bulk of this entire unit, which is the payroll deduction packet. In this activity, we are going to go over all kinds of different items, ranging from gross income to salary, net income, Social Security, and Medicare combined being FICA, federal income tax, state income tax, employee benefits, health insurance, life insurance, 401k, an employer match to your 401k, direct deposit, writing a check, deductions, and so much more. All right, here we go. This is the payroll deduction packet for personal finance, money management. In this section, we will revisit this packet multiple times throughout the entire year. First, you'll identify what is the career that you've chosen earlier on in this unit, 3 skills required, and the education required in order to secure the career. You'll take that gross annual salary and place it right there in the middle box that's light green. Take that gross annual salary, and we'll work our way through the surrounding boxes, first being the gross monthly. We take our annual salary, in this case $100,000, divided by 12 months in a year, leaving us with $8,333. I'll then make my way to the bottom left corner box, pointed to the right, to the bottom left corner box, gross weekly salary, and we'll figure out how to solve for that by taking $100,000 in a year, dividing it out by 52 weeks in a year, leaving us with $1,923 per week. In order to find our gross biweekly salary in the top right corner, we will do this one of 2 ways. You really could just take your weekly salary and multiply it by 2, or we could take our annual salary and divide it by 26 because there's 52 weeks in a year, biweekly meaning every other week, leaving us with 52 divided by 2 gives us 26 pay periods. It's probably easiest just to do weekly times 2, but in this case, let's do $100,000 divided by 26 bi-weekly pay periods in a year, leaving us with $3,846. To find our gross hourly salary, which nobody will ever ask you about, but it is worth knowing, if you are a salaried employee, you earn a set amount of money per year to perform the job. You are no longer an hourly worker. And so in this case, it's kind of interesting to figure out how much do you actually earn per hour. To solve for this, we would then take our gross weekly salary, and if you're a 40-hour per week roughly salary worker, then you would take 40 hours divided into that gross weekly salary to solve, and in this case, $48 per hour. And then the gross income versus net income question I'll leave subject to your solving, leaving us with the next page, all about tax deductions. There are multiple taxes that we have to pay, and some states are different than others depending on where you're viewing this from. Social Security and Medicare tax are taxes that are paid by almost every employee, depending on what your profession are. However, there are some professions that are exempt from paying it. Social Security is paid at 6.2% of your gross income. Social Security provides guaranteed income upon retirement as early as 62 years old, but some people choose to push that off further so that they have a greater payout upon retirement. Medicare is in place to reduce medical expenses upon retirement and is accounted for as 1.45% of your income as well. Medicare, again, reduces your medical expenditures in retirement, but you pay it throughout your career Again, Medicare is eligible to you as of right now as early as 65 years old. Federal income taxes do vary, and federal income taxes are withheld from your paycheck depending on how much money it is that you earn and how you elect to have those monies withheld. You can change that amount of money by adjusting your W-4, which we talk about in a tax unit later on. What do your federal taxes pay for? Well, quite a few things, as you can see listed there, and more. I use a link that I've provided to you called tinyurl.com/fake tax. So you can get an estimated rough tax amount that you will pay out of each one of your paychecks. Now, it's worth noting this is not your marginal tax rate. This is adjusting for all of the different progressive taxes that are adding up. The more money that you earn, the more tax that you pay. By using that tinyurl.com, it will allow you to identify what range of gross annual income you fall within so that then you can determine roughly what percentage to use below. State and local income taxes vary by state and by locality. Do look up yours, but in this case, I'm located in California. And again, the more money you earn, the more tax that you pay. I use 5% for this assignment in my classroom, but depending on where you are, it could change. And again, it is progressive in California too, so I just kind of took a middle of the pack rate there. Now, in order to solve all of these solutions, we have to go back to page 1 of the payroll deduction packet, where we take our gross monthly salary. And in this case, I use $8,333. And that first line, we're solving for our Social Security tax. So we take $8,333 and multiply it by our 6.2%. But we remember that we can't just multiply by 6.2 or we get a gigantic number. We actually have to convert it from a percentage over to a decimal. So we move that decimal to the left, as Beyonce once said, and that leaves us with 0.062. I multiply $8,333 times the decimal form of 0.062 to leave me with a Social Security tax per month of $517. I then move down to figure out my Medicare tax. I do the same math. I take my 1.45%, I move the decimal 2 places to the left, leaving me with 0.0145. Multiply that by my gross monthly income, and it leaves me with a Medicare tax of $121 owed. Next up is federal tax. The federal tax is found again by going to tinyurl.com/fake tax. And once you're there, you'll find your range. You'll get the percentage that you land on, multiply it by your gross monthly income. And in my case, I'm left with $1,167. Finally, the state tax, if applicable to you, depending on where you're at. In my instance, I'm using 5%. We come down to that second to bottom line where it says FICA tax. And FICA tax is actually going to be the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, which is the combination of Social Security and Medicare together. So if you ever see on your paycheck that somebody named FICA is taking money out of your paycheck, that's what it is. It's Social Security and Medicare. Some employers might line it out as Medicare. Some might line it out as Social Security individually. Some might just list it as FICA. And in this case, we're going to combine the two. So I take the solution to my first 2 lines of Social Security and Medicare, add them up, and the sum leaves me with my FICA tax. I then take the solution for federal tax, add that in, add my solution for state tax, add that in, add them all up, and that leaves me with my total taxes. I go back to that very first gross monthly income, subtract out my total taxes, and at this point, my gross income minus tax deductions leaves me with $6,111. It's time to spend a moment talking about employee benefits. Some employers will try to entice employees to join their workforce with various different types of opportunities for them beyond just their income range. Some will pay fully for your health insurance, which reduces your medical expenses should you end up needing medical attention or just regular doctor checkups. Then additionally, life insurance. Life insurance is in place to protect the well-being of your family in the event that something were to happen to you and you passed away or were incapacitated. Life insurance will leave your beneficiary, the person that you name as the recipient of that insurance policy, a lump sum of money, depending on how it is that you've chosen to do that. And it can be relatively inexpensive while you're younger. In this case, we're using $10 per month. I forgot to mention that for the medical insurance or health insurance, those are interchangeable when I use those 2 words, we're going to list it as $120 per month. So again, $120 for health insurance, medical insurance, and $10 per month for life insurance. And so the next piece is some employers may offer you a varying type of retirement account. They could be a 401k or a 403b. Also, sometimes they'll offer a Roth 403b or a Roth 401k. You can also sign up for one of these types of an account on your own without an employer sponsored plan, and that would be called an individual retirement account or a Roth IRA. And there's other varieties of these types of tools too. We'll spend more time talking about this at a later date, but for right now, these are opportunities for you to set aside money so that you have a greater amount of income in retirement or a greater lump sum of money sitting there beyond that of just your Social Security. For this instance, we will use a 3% gross monthly income, which gets matched by your employer. So if you put in 3% and your employer puts in 3%, just because you contributed, that's a combined total of 6%. And if you say no, you're effectively saying, I do not want a 3% raise, employer. Some employers will offer paid holidays, paid vacation, discounts on a variety of different types of things that they offer. For example, if you work at some kind of an electronics retailer, perhaps you get a discount on electronics. Some businesses may offer you reduced expenses for training or education as well. All right, it is time to apply some math. We're going to go and reference a bunch of the numbers that we've already solved for so far. First thing we want to do is talk about a 401k. We briefly talked about it earlier. Well, this is a retirement account. The reason that we want to put money away in this 401k or Roth IRA or Roth 401k and fill in the blank many other types of products out there is because we don't want to have to rely on Social Security alone, as you'll see later on in this last several units from now. With this 401k, we are going to take your gross monthly pre-tax pay, meaning money that has not been taxed yet. So we're going to our very first page of the payroll deduction packet, gross monthly pay, and we are going to multiply it by 3%. In my example, the gross monthly pay is $8,333. I'm going to multiply that by 3%. I know I can't multiply it by 3, so I need to convert that percent to a decimal. I do that by converting it to 0.03. So I take $8,333 times 0.03, leaves me with $249 and some change. I round it up to $250. That is my monthly 401k contribution. But because my employer is generous and is offering me a match, I know that I need to take that match and max it out to the fullest, or else I'm giving away a free bonus. As such, my employer offers a match 100% on the first 3% that I contribute to my 401k. As such, they match my $250 with their $250, giving me a total monthly retirement contribution of $500 to my 401k. I'm going to now start with my gross monthly pay of $8,333, subtract out my contribution, not my employer's. My employer's contribution is that's money that I don't have to worry about. I'll pay taxes on that later when I go to retire as early as 59 and a half years old. But for right now, I want to just go and subtract out my $250 from my gross monthly pay. That's what I put in. And then once I've done that, I will also subtract out my total taxes from page 2. So again, that is, when I come back here to page 2, it's that far right number at the bottom where it's the combination sum of FICA tax, which again is Social Security and Medicare combined, with federal tax, with my state tax, gives me my total tax. Now that I've got that total tax, in my case was $2,222, I subtract that out from the gross pay. So once again, gross pay minus 401k contribution minus my total taxes leaves me with my after-tax post 401k pay here, which for me is $5,861. I take that dollar amount, I bring it down a line right to where it says health insurance. I'm going to use the number from above, which is $5,861 for me, subtract out $120 a month in health insurance. And I only know that because that's the number we're using in this example that I used on that employee benefits page just prior to this one. So subtracting out that $120 leaves me with $5,741. I'll then take that number and subtract out $10 for life insurance. The older you get, the more likely you are for, unfortunately, again, morbid, the possibility of passing away. And as such, we're going to have a lower amount as we're younger and a higher amount as we are older. Since we are younger, we're using $10. So $5,741 minus $10 leaves me with $5,731. And this is our approximate net pay. It's worth noting there are tons of other things that we could be deducting from here, but these are pretty standard. We'll take that $5,731, which is our approximate net pay, move it down into that light green box in the middle lower section of the page where it says monthly net pay. We'll use that $5,731 and solve first the bottom left corner box, which is net annual salary. And the easiest way to do this is to multiply the net monthly by 12 months, gives us our net annual. Now that we have our net annual, we can solve our net weekly. We take the net annual divided by 52 weeks. That gives us our net weekly. We could then move over to the right side, and with that, we would just take our net weekly and multiply it by 2, or we could also take our net annual and divide it by 26. Either one of those works. It's the same number. And lastly, to solve for the net hourly pay, we would take our net weekly, divide it by 40 hours in a work week, which is commonplace in the United States, and that will give us our net hourly wage, meaning how much money we are actually receiving for every single hour that we work after taxes, after deductions, after our 401k contribution, life insurance, and health insurance. What percentage of your gross earnings is net pay? It's something that's just kind of interesting to know. If we take our net monthly pay divided out by our gross monthly pay, it leaves us with a decimal point, in this case, 0.69, which equals 69% when converted over to percentage. And what does that mean? It means that this employee in this example takes home approximately 69% of their gross pay. For every dollar that I earn, 69 cents is what I actually see show up in my checking account. This next page here is a minimum wage scenario that you can apply in your classroom or at your home by taking that same information so you can compare and contrast what your career might look like versus if you were earning the minimum wage in your state, and use that information, follow the same exact process, and once you've done so, you can figure out what your net income would be at the minimum wage so you can see how important it is to carry on with progressing and leveling up. I then give you a direct deposit form to fill out because once you've got that net pay, it's got to show up in your bank account one way or another. And this is a great way to do it, to set it up to where it automatically shows up in your checking account without you having to go to the bank. Last up is to write out a check. Now that that money is showing up to you, it's time to write out some checks. Maybe you have to pay your electricity or your gas bill, maybe the water bill. Life gets real here. That top is an example, and the bottom two are for you to fill out. Before assessments and all of the closure of this unit, we play a game called Spent by Next Generation Personal Finance, where students get a chance to gamify their learnings and experience real-life career and money decisions. NGPF's game Spent is an online simulation where players try to survive a month on a tight budget, making tough financial choices about housing, food, work, and unexpected expenses to better understand the challenges of living paycheck to paycheck. And that closes out the unit before they take their test. At this point, they should understand all of their payroll deductions at a high level overview. We dive deeper in throughout the rest of this semester into all of the content that we just covered using that same career, that same salary, and students can really understand conceptually from start to finish the importance of making good choices and setting themselves up for hopefully financial freedom, or if nothing else, at least creating some kind of safety net for themselves. I'm Max Feldman. Please do consider subscribing and purchasing the Teachers Pay Teachers slide deck as well to support me and show me that I should continue making these videos and general content. Thanks so much, and keep helping our students be awesome and find that financial freedom and security.